All right. Well, hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Lynn Kistler, and I'm going to be presenting our webinar tonight. I know you may have seen that Ruth Ann McComb was going to present. She is one of our TAC members who is living in North Carolina, and she's had some issues over the weekend, as you might guess, so I'm filling in for her tonight. So again, my name is Lynn Kistler. I'm coming to you from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where it has been raining all day long here as well, and we're getting those hurricane remnants there. I'm a retired science teacher. I taught for 30 years in a school district outside of Pittsburgh, where I taught AP Environmental, some chemistry, some physics, a little bit of earth and space science, so a little bit of everything like a lot of us do when we're a teacher. And for the last several years, I've been working part-time with Switch Classroom. And then since I've retired, I'm working a little bit more with them as a program specialist. And I'm honored to be your guest tonight, as your host tonight with this webinar. So next slide. Sorry, two more slides, sorry. So our goal tonight is to think about how we can establish energy as a topic throughout the year. We know it's an important topic for a lot of our classes that we teach, but how do we actually kind of talk about it all year long? And because we know it's such a necessary part of our daily lives. So in the chat, and I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with this software, but it's up in the chat is up in the top right-hand side with the little chat box there. I think it's the third or fourth one over. In the chat, briefly share a description of some incident in which you did not have access to energy. When was a time you didn't have access to energy and it kind of messed things up a little bit for you? Would you mind sharing that with us? Is it ever that time that you ran out of gas or the power went out at a crucial time? Okay, so everyone's had a busy Monday. So you want to go to the next slide, Sarah? Thank you. So we know that we need energy all the time, right? So we, whether it's running out of gas, whether it's the power going out. I know one time here at my home, the furnace decided to quit in the middle of winter. Usually it happens when it's the coldest day of the year, right? And so trying to get through that and getting the furnace people out here was a challenge. But in tonight's webinar, we're hoping to share the importance of energy in our daily lives and to demonstrate how we can use that energy as a common thread between many topics in our classes. We're going to help you learn that Switch Classroom can provide some free, ready-to-use resources for you and your students, and understand how it's fundamental across multiple content areas, and then also allow some time for your questions and discussion as well. So energy is a vital part of every single thing we do, and everything we do is influenced by energy. Without energy, our modern lives just would not be possible. We know in social media, in the news, there's a growing demand for an energy transition to resources that have fewer emissions and less waste. And understanding the pros and cons of every energy source is vital as we make those decisions about this transition and what it's going to look like. Another concept about energy that many people don't realize are that nearly a third of the world does not have access to reliable energy sources. A third of the world, that's 2 billion people in the world, do not have access to reliable energy, over 2 billion people. And yet the demand for energy is growing tremendously in these countries as they become more and more advanced. And it's our students that are going to be the ones making these important decisions by just selecting the sustainable, accessible, and affordable energy options in our future. So we know we all depend on energy, whether that's from electricity to run our air conditioning. Very hot summer in the South and Southwest for sure. You would have a tough time without that air conditioning. Refrigeration, communication, our cell phones, our Wi-Fi, our computers, the internet. Our transportation. How many of you have perhaps made a decision recently about I'm going to buy a gas-powered car or I'm going to switch to that electric vehicle? That's a decision I'm fighting with right now. Whether it's air travel, whether it's energy for our food, whether it's food production, food storage, food processing, and for consumer goods. Do I need new bedding? Where's that coming from? Where's it going to be shipped from? Do I need a new refrigerator or a new air conditioner? And for heating, winter approaching here in Western Pennsylvania, we rely a lot on natural gas for heat. Other regions of the country, that's electric. Some places it's just simply passive or even active solar for heat. So we know that we all depend on energy. We know that we do that. What about your students? Do they think very much about energy? right? So let's think about this. How would your students say they use energy? And you can put that your answers to that in the chat. What would your students' responses be if you kind of pose that question as a bell ringer when they came in? How would you use energy? How have you used energy? And again, that chat is in the top right corner. It has like the two little boxes, about the fourth little icon over. Definitely to charge everything. Even my grandkids were talking about, I need to charge my Chromebook tonight. My teacher gets mad if it's not charged when I go in. Well, let's go to the next slide. Let me tell you what I know my students would have said. My students were always hungry. So anytime I had food, or they would be asking, can we please go to the cafeteria? I need to get some breakfast. I need to grab some lunch. What do you have to eat? Do you have any candy? Do you have any snacks, Mrs. K? All of that. They're sending texts all the time, Snapchats, all the social media, their laptops and Chromebooks. Video games, and then they play more video games after that. And when they're done with that, they play a few more video games after that. All of those are going to take energy. They know that. Their parents or themselves, the students themselves, are transporting themselves to and from school, to work, to activities, visiting with their friends, etc. And all the energy to produce the clothes, the shoes, the cups that they have, the water bottles, all of those things, all of those produce energy. So the students have a sense of energy, but we need to remind them of all the energy that they're using, not just for their electricity demands and transportation, but all of the energy that it takes to make the goods and provide the services that they are really accustomed to. Okay? So as a teacher, where can you introduce energy across the topics in your class to establish it early in the year and to keep it as a focus throughout? I always try to think of it as a common thread throughout a lot of different units. One thing I taught AP Environmental for the last 12 or 13 years, I guess, before I retired. And a lot of the students would say the first unit, oh, this class is really, really hard. I don't get it. The tests are really hard. And I said, don't worry, we come back to every topic over and over and over again. It's a spiraling curriculum where we talked about it here, but it's going to show up in the next unit, it's going to show up in the next unit, it's going to show up in the next unit. And so it's spiraling, so that when they see it again, they get to know it better and better. And energy, we know, is one of those units. It's really hard for students. It's sometimes hard for teachers as well. It's not something that you're maybe comfortable teaching, but the more you see it and the more connections you can make, the easier it becomes. So, of course, in the AP curriculum, we teach about electricity production. So we learn about how fossil fuels make energy. We learn how nuclear, solar, wind, hydropower, how all of those work, the pros and cons of each. But very closely related to that, as we talk about the pros and cons often are the pollution that these things create. And so in AP Environmental, again, there's a unit on pollution, but it's the air pollution. Where's that pollution coming from? It's CO2 emissions. It's particulate matter that might be from fossil fuels. It's pollution from mining that comes from the mining of coal, from the mining of uranium, from the mining of those rare earth metals that we need for solar cells. It's the manufacture and disposal of solar cells and wind turbines. Where are we going to dispose of those when they've lived through their useful time? When we think about where did those resources come from in the first place, so our Earth Systems and Resources Unit, how much water is available to create these energy resources? How much water do I need to operate a nuclear power plant? How much water do I need behind a dam to create the sufficient amount of energy that's going to power the dam at the generation capability that I'm hoping that it will? So a lot of that's related to the Earth's geography and the climate that we have in those different regions. Here in Pittsburgh, it's not the best place for solar cells, just for photovoltaics, to be honest. There's more and more places have them, but for me at my house, it's not really going to make a big difference. Again, land and water use. How much mining resources do we use? But again, not only for fossil fuels, but the mining and for the minerals for photovoltaics, materials for wind turbines, uranium. And then again, that other aspect we mentioned about energy, it's not just about creating the energy, but is it affordable and accessible to all? So what's the quality of life that people have thanks to energy? Is there access to energy? If there's someone in Nepal, do they have clean cooking fuel? If there's someone in Ethiopia, can they have safe energy that's attached to the grid in Ethiopia. So is it reliable? Is it affordable to everyone? And with population, is energy available for different populations? And we know that it varies across the world what people have access to and what's the best energy choice for them. Just recently, I was doing some research for Switch Classroom, and we were looking up the energy use across Canada, and we saw that in British Columbia, the number one source of electricity production was hydropower because they have a wide number of resources for water and hydropower. But yet in other provinces, there was practically no hydropower at all. It was fossil fuels or nuclear. So even in a country, one particular country, the available energy varies across even one country, let alone the globe. Let's kind of ask a question for you. I know this is one thing I do not miss as a classroom teacher. How many of you have ever had to adjust your plans due to all those crazy schedules? I know the school I taught at just had homecoming, and I saw, oh, thank goodness I'm not there during homecoming week. So how many of you have ever had to adjust your schedules to have some sort of crazy schedule, half days, early dismissals, kids leaving for specials maybe, just whatever those crazy sort of things happen in the classroom and in the schools? Yeah, we knew that was kind of an easy question, right? So yeah, we've all had that happen where it's always when it's least easy for you to adjust, etc. So what can you do? I think one of the best things you could do is find those crazy schedule days to do that little tiny bit of energy education in your classrooms. One problem that a lot of science teachers have though is where am I going to find this information? So much energy themed education is very biased. I've had students in the past do reports and they were getting information from the Kentucky Coal Association. Well, what is the Kentucky Coal Association going to say about coal? They're going to say that it was all coming up roses. So we have to think about that biased information is everywhere. But Switch Classroom, next slide, is standards aligned, we're factual, we're non-biased, we're nonpartisan, and we're aligned with next generation science standards, we're aligned with the AP environmental science curriculum, we're aligned with IB, environmental systems and societies class. That's another one I taught, forgot to mention that one. And then we're also aligned with the Texas state standards as well. So if you haven't seen Switch Classroom, just a real quick poll. How many of you have seen Switch Classroom before? If you can put that in the chat, maybe. I guess we don't have a poll set up for that, but how many of you have used Switch Classroom in the past? Again, that chat is up in the top right corner there. Or thumbs up. Yeah, that works too. Yep. Barb, yep. Okay. And even if you haven't seen it, I hope you take a look at it. It's very, very fresh. We have new colors, we have a new layout, we have a lot of new content on there as well. So you know that our content is video based. They're short 3 to 5 minute lessons, multiple choice questions, fill in the blank, visual presentation, some critical thinking. And then for our most popular lessons, we've recently added bell ringers, exit slips, some labs, hands-on materials. And then new this fall, we've been working really, really hard to provide monthly some new materials, some new resources. And you'll see those in the newsletter. That maybe that's how you found out about this webinar. They're also on Teachers Pay Teachers, on the YouTube channel too. Can they access them through there somehow? Yes, sort of. Right. So there's a lot of ways we can access. They're on the blog on the website. But we're coming up with new materials every month just to kind of keep it fresh and things that are ready for you to use in your classroom. So be sure and check those out. So let's take a look at one of those data sets that we were talking about. These are kind of new. We launched a lot of these last fall. So if you haven't seen it lately, and this is an example of a data set. And there's usually about 4 or 5 questions with these. We're not going to show all of those, but this is one from our Introduction to Energy lesson, and that's our most popular lesson, hands down, by everyone. We provide a graph, and then we also make sure, and a lot of people kind of miss this, there's a little tab up there by the graph that says raw data. So you click on the tab and it will give you the raw data so you can see exactly what data was used to generate the graph. And it'll also tell you the source of the information too. So if you want to double check that so that you know that it is factual. And then another thing that we add too is there's another tab that puts the information, excuse me, Sarah, we on the next one. That's a definition of the terms. This one was pretty easy. Probably the only term we thought students might not be familiar with is a terawatt hour. And it just describes what a terawatt hour is. Other ones have some other terms or expressions used to represent different countries and things like that, but it's a good thing to have on there. So let's look at just one or two of these questions real quick. So this question is, why is oil such a small percentage of total US electricity production generation? And on that graph, I know it's a little bit small to see, but oil is that purple color on there. And you can see it's just this tiny, tiny little sliver. So there's another question prior to this one that asks them just to interpret the graph. So it's just asking like what percentage is fossil fuels or something like that. But there's deeper thinking questions. They have to know a little bit about why is oil such a small amount? We always talk about oil production in the US. We talk about oil in a global sense and how that means politically and economically as well. But why doesn't oil make such a small amount of electricity in the US? And so students have to kind of tie a couple of components together with that and put some thought into it. Another question, next one, is just create a question. There we go. Create a question from the data set and answer it. This is something that really kind of pushes the students to do some critical thinking. What could I ask about this that would be kind of a meaningful and tough question? And not just like what color is hydro or something like that, but to really have them develop a tough question that maybe have them pair up with someone. You ask a question, have a partner answer it, something like that. So some higher level critical thinking questions can be there also. So where do you start then? Like, how are you going to get this idea of energy used throughout the year? The number one place to start is just to start at the beginning on our very first lesson. I know you can go in any order, but the first lesson, Introduction to Energy lesson resource plan, right? So what we've done is we've taken our Intro to Energy lesson and we've kind of did like just a little snippet of that. You can click on that QR code or use your phone to pull up that QR code. And that's our resource plan that we have for this month so that you can get started on energy. And in that we have a bell ringer. We've got the video, the multiple choice questions. We've got the data set that we just shared with you. So if you want to see the full data set, we've got a exit ticket for that as well. And then you can always go to Switch Classroom to the full website to see all the other materials that are there too, the harder, more challenging questions. So depending on your grade level, if it's middle school, those four or five things might be enough. If it's a higher level AP or high school class, you've got some other ones there too, that some other questions that would challenge your students a little bit more. As I mentioned, we're coming out with new resources every month. So a few of the others that we've already done this year is one on measurements and conversions. So again, for maybe APES teachers or really any science teacher, there's some really good things here with just measurements and conversions, and those particularly related to energy. There's a lab activity in that as well, where you can kind of have students go through some lab stations just to take measurements and learn, practice the metric system. One on saving energy and saving water. The Intro to Energy, of course, and then a gas and oil formation. That's one that's really good to start the year off with because this is one that does need to sit and simmer for a few months to get the gas to be produced and the oil to be formed in that. So students can set that up early in the year. And that's a great one to have out at the beginning of the year, and the students will see it change, and you can kind of just bring that up over and over again with your students. Yeah. So,
Lynn, would you like to give them a sneak peek of the resources we're releasing next week?
Sure. Yeah. So next week coming up, I'm so excited for these. We had one of our TAC members from Maine actually did most of the work on this. It's a debate packet. We just saw the presidential debate, the vice presidential debate coming up tomorrow night. So we're having a debate. We set up a debate style resource pack on just different energy questions, and we'll kind of let you decide what the energy question is that your students might face, because again, different areas in the country might have different major concerns. Here in Western Pennsylvania, it's all about natural gas here. So should we have pipelines for those? Should we allow fracking and all of those sort of questions? In your area, it could be the growth of wind turbines, whatever it might be. So that's one coming up. And the second one is Megan, help me out. I just
The media
media,
literacy
right? Oh yeah, yeah, I wrote that one.
really exciting.
So the second one is on media literacy. Again, we think about all the challenges we have with finding balanced information. So we think about where our students are getting information for things, and so how do they analyze a resource? They look things up on the internet. How do they know that what they're seeing is factual and true and unbiased? And so it's really a tool to help students learn that very, very important skill of evaluating a resource and seeing, is it a reputable resource or a reputable news story, or is it kind of a bunch of garbage that maybe they should discard? So really looking forward to those, and those will be out next week whenever our newsletter comes out. So I hope you are able to download those and enjoy those as well.
And I'll just pop in. We are truly so excited. I can't stay quiet about it. But one last detail, and then I'll let Lynn take over again, is the media literacy pack includes an interview with a climate journalist from Time magazine about how we consume media, and then also how journalists and editors create media. And so as we've framed that around climate, it's really a fascinating really short interviews, but those will be in those media packs too. And those are brand new videos as well as brand new lesson plans and resources for you. So watch for the newsletter. They'll be in there, and then on Teacher Pay Teacher, and we'll push them out in lots of ways. But sorry, Lynn, go for it. I'll
And
mute myself.
we also partner with Project Look Sharp, if any of you are familiar with that, to help when we're using a few of their resources with that media guide as well. So that's great to form some partnerships with some other organizations as well that are concerned about having unbiased information out there. All right. Anything else on that one? No. Okay. Yeah, I forgot about it. Thank you. All right. So where can we teach? Where can we use Switch Classroom, and where can we teach about energy? Well, I've taught almost all of these classes except social studies, I guess, in my career at one point or another. And I can teach energy in all of them. So in environmental science, of course, energy production and pollution, chemistry, talking about nuclear and chemical reactions, physics, electricity, earth and space, resource formation, social studies. If you have any social studies friends, really pass on Switch Classroom to them, because I think there's a lot of information we have on Switch Classroom about energy poverty and economics and access, environmental justice, all of those very important topics. And then math teachers, they always need some better examples of real world applications of energy, of calculations and data, things like that. For most of these, for earth science, chemistry, physics, earth and space science, we have alignment guides that you can find on our blog. And Megan just put those in the chat also. And you can find a quick start guide for each one of those. And if you ever have any questions about how to get started, you're always more than welcome to reach out to any of us here at Switch Classroom. We'll kind of leave some time. We wanted to make sure we had a little bit of time for your questions. So does anyone have any questions or comments that they would like to throw out there?
While you're maybe thinking about those crazy schedules coming up in October and November before the break, I'll just mention also that Switch Classroom is growing. We're really excited about some new things that we have on the horizon. But part of that is that we're expanding our reach and our content into Canada. And so we are expanding the content available. We are expanding some marketing initiatives and attending some conferences and pulling in Canadian teachers to help us on our TAC, which Lynn mentioned is our Teacher Advisory Council. So we are still looking for Teacher Advisory Council members across the states as well. If you're interested, I'll put my email in the chat and you can reach out, but definitely in Canada as well. So if you know of any teachers across the border who might be interested, it's a low-level commitment, up to 7 hours a month, but it averages probably 3. It's a paid position. And these Teacher Advisory Council members, which Lynn was for quite a while, are kind of our eyes and ears into different districts and needs in different regions. They represent us at conferences. They help create content, help with standards alignment. So keep that in mind. I'm going to put my email address in there, and definitely let me know if you are interested or if you have someone in mind who should reach out to me. But other than
And
that, any other questions?
yeah,
Yeah.
one other thing, yeah, feel free to keep throwing the questions out there if you have some questions in the chat. We are going to be at a lot of conferences coming up in the next month. They all are landing all at the same time, end of October, beginning of November. Um, Myself and two other of our TAC members are going to be at the National Science Teachers Convention in New Orleans. We are giving 5 different presentations down there and having a poster session and having a booth. So we're going to talk about everything from wind energy to we're going to be launching some stewardship projects that you can come and learn about. One of our TAC members has been heavily involved in working up with problem-based learning, project-based learning, how Switch Classroom can actually tie into agriculture. So a lot of different things there. We have a couple TAC members going to be at the North Carolina Teachers Conference. Myself and a teacher from New Jersey are going to be at the New York Science Teachers Conference. We're going to be in California, and we're going to be in Texas as well. So we're going to be all over the place in the next 6 weeks. And
We'll
put on a lot
also be
of
in Vancouver
oh
or
yeah,
in
and
Squamish at the
yeah,
end of
yeah,
October, and then in Calgary, Canada, that will be February.
yeah. So we will be all over the North America in the next few months
Yeah.
here, from top to bottom. So if you're at any of those events, stop by and say hello to us and get some new swag with our new branding on it as well. Okay. Any questions anyone has? So I
Yeah,
want to
and
go ahead.
great. Barbara, the future webinars will be in the newsletter, so keep an eye on the newsletters. They come out each month. And Leela, are we going to educate politicians? That is actually a common conversation we have with how, when. We don't ask why. Why? Um, so maybe, who knows? There's always opportunity. We'll just see if it fits where it fits.
I
Great
hope you
question.
don't mind me saying this, but a good resource to direct those politicians is Energy Switch. It is a PBS series that Dr. Tinker also hosts that very much aligns with the content in Switch Classroom and some great conversations between sometimes politicians, sometimes government officials, but also industry experts, academia, news journalists, just a wide variety of people. So that's a little bit higher level than we do at the high school level with Switch Classroom, high school and middle school level, but some great conversations there that we are actually using some of those resources. All right, I want to
All
thank
right.
everyone for coming tonight, and I'll see another question there maybe.
A beginning course to the politicians.
We can only train them all. So
Yes.
we can go
Well,
back.
I hope it's encouraging. There have been different groups across the country, different political groups and levels of government who have used our resources. Um, so perhaps that will continue. But
Yeah.
good questions.
We did in Pennsylvania. We did actually talk to a state senator here in Pennsylvania, and
Mhm.
he's promoting his resources, our resources through his office. So that was kind of good to hear him doing that for us. So it was good to meet him. What was that last fall? That was so. We will do our best. Direct them to our website, and we'll try to teach them what we can. No, most people don't know where their energy comes from, right? And that's why we need to start with our students and have them learn where our energy comes from. I said even myself for physics, that was a big thing. Students, we could teach all you want about electricity with series and parallel circuits, but it was important for them to know where it's coming from before it even gets to those series and parallel circuits. Like, where's it coming from? How's it made? How's it getting here? What are the wires for? What's a transformer? What's a high voltage power line? Just all of that basic information that not only politicians, but just the general public doesn't know either. So that's our job to educate them, and I hope you'll spread the message as well. Thank you, Layla. Yep, that's why I joined Switch in the first place. There was balanced info, and I loved it. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.